This is our VandalView presentation on biodiversity.
The United Kingdom has a major problem of red deer overpopulation. These deer are causing major problems in the forest, where they're eating and trampling all the plant growth. The majority of these deer are concentrated in Scotland, where there are 350,000 deer. Currently, the deer are culled in an unspecified way by the Forest Commission. However, it has not been effective in reducing deer numbers. The primary stakeholders are the people that live, work, or are frequent tourists to areas with heavy red deer populations. The stakeholders with the largest impact are likely the farmers and the sheep ranchers. They tend to live the closest to the deer and are most directly impacted by whatever solution is implemented. They also have very influential organizations representing them. The government would have to be involved in implementing a solution for the red deer problem. There isn't enough return on investment for a private corporation to take it on. One of the major reasons for the deer overpopulation problem is that all large predators are extinct in the United Kingdom. It used to have such predators such as the wolf, brown bear, and lynx hundreds of years ago, but they have all been wiped out. So the deer have predators to keep them in check. Reintroducing one of these predators would restore the predator-prey balance. The predator would not only be able to thin out the deer numbers, they would also keep the deer moving around more so they don't sit in one area and eat it clean. Wolves would be the most effective predator to reintroduce to solve the deer problem because they are more likely to go after the deer rather than other food options and be successful in killing them. The United Kingdom can look to the United States for an example of successful wolf reintroduction. The Yellowstone area was suffering similar populations with overpopulation of elk. The wolves thrived and were even taken off the endangered species list. The UK has been without wolves for much longer than the US was, so it might be a bit more challenging, but the US has proven it can work. It would not work as well in Brazil and India because their main issue is habitat loss rather than species interaction imbalances.
The Western Ghats is situated along the western coast of India. Agriculture is a major part of the lifestyle in this region, and although they have fairly unintrusive methods when it comes to biodiversity, there is always room for improvement. One of the key reasons they are far less intrusive with their agriculture is that their main crop of choice in the region is tea. The majority of agriculture is plow, plant, harvest, and repeat method. But tea is generally left for a minimum of 10 years, continuously harvesting the leaves before the new plants are required to produce quality leaves. The vast majority of animals that are disturbed are reptiles and amphibians. Larger animals such as elephants, tigers, various breeds of deer, and many others are generally encouraged and seen as a benefit more than a nuisance. Much of the Western Ghats is protected by religious groups more so than the government. While there are regulations on certain areas, many are considered holy forests and are left completely undisturbed save annual visits for religious ceremonies, which are little more than walking through the forest and small ceremonies. The issue lies in the few farms that do use pesticides, flood irrigation, and with a lack of area to expand, they need to conserve the areas that they're already using, so that hopefully minimal expansion will be necessary. What I propose as a solution was to organize farmers throughout the region as a whole. Many unions of sorts and farmer groups do exist, but none that deal with biodiversity directly. The goal of the group would be to share farming techniques that are more efficient among the people, as well as less intrusive to smaller animals and plants. This way, there are few people being left with past farming techniques when they could be more efficient and friendly to the biodiversity within the region. Awareness can be spread about animals that are known to be in danger and can make adjustments accordingly. The key benefactors are the farmers themselves. As a sharing of farming knowledge, they can help further everyone as a whole. The government will benefit through the raising of efficiency in the region, thusly creating higher GDP for the country. Initially, the government would have to put some money down in order to organize the groups, but the cost is merely that of manpower and time. The benefits the government and the people within the region far outweigh the cost. This technique wouldn't work well in the UK or the US due to the fact that they are far ahead agriculturally, and groups like this already do exist. This technique could work in Brazil, but would have to go region by region due to its size.
Bermuda's flora has evolved in relative isolation. Because of this, of the island's 165 native plant species, 40 are endemic. Since the first settlers arrived in Bermuda, overexploitation of resources has occurred along with the arrival of invasive species that have put significant pressures on the fragile island ecosystem. The land area of Bermuda is only about 20 square miles, making it so Bermuda imports most of its goods, which in addition to humans intentionally bringing plants to the island has resulted in the abundance of invasive plant and animal species thriving in the warm climate and ample rainfall that Bermuda receives. The loss of native flora creates ripple effects throughout ecosystems. Of Bermuda's 3 endemic tree species, all are now considered rare. Juniperus bermudiana, the Bermuda cedar, used to dominate the landscape until 2 introduced invasive insects took out 95% of the population, deforesting Bermuda. While Bermuda has 13 small nature reserves maintained by the Department of Conservation Services, there is not currently an active program aimed at aggressive restoration of native species. As a mitigation strategy, I propose the establishment of an educational native plant nursery in association with Bermuda College. This nursery would be established by funding through grant writing, college course fees, and working with the Department of Conservation Services. Propagation and maintenance of nursery plants would be affiliated with the educational programs and run by student efforts and volunteer efforts by engaging community members. Ties with local schools would also be established to coordinate restoration and invasive removal projects in the field. The goals of the nursery would be specifically aimed at propagation of natives, with a strong focus on endemic species, and restoration of natives in open spaces, which account for 45% of Bermuda's landscape. Engaging the community in growing native plants is a mitigation strategy that can also be applied in other countries.
Ecological destruction in the Cerrado has been twice that in the Amazon, and while the majority of the Amazon rainforest survives, more than 60% of the Cerrado's former 200 million hectares has disappeared under the plow, mostly within the last 2 decades. This staggering amount of land loss to agriculture in the Cerrado has been attributed to similar causes of Amazon rainforest land clearing, with the main aggressors being soybean farming and cattle rearing. The issues of large-scale agribusiness and the exportation of crops causes ecological destruction in the Cerrado of Brazil, which threatens the rich biodiversity of the area. Because the Cerrado encompasses such a large area, and because it has a great diversity of natural resources, there are many stakeholders which are affected by the destruction of the ecosystem and any protected areas which may be created. The main stockholders in the Cerrado include stakeholders, soybean farmers, cattle ranchers, local farmers, charcoal producers, and other large-scale crop farmers. Because of a lack of regulations and the rapid expansion caused by private business, government intervention is needed to slow the rate of unhindered expansion. The preferred mitigation strategy to preserve the biodiversity in the Cerrado would be to create federally protected areas and to enforce the protection and preservation of the land and the biologically diverse life which occupies the area. A major issue that currently allows habitat loss to run unhindered in the Cerrado region is there lacks federal legislation protecting the area from biodiversity loss. Both new legislation and better enforcement would be needed to effectively create a system of federally protected areas which can preserve the rich biodiversity of what remains untouched in the Cerrado. Between 2002 and 2006, the federally protected areas in the Amazon tripled through legislation that was pushed through because of a large increase of environmental awareness in Brazil about the deforestation which was occurring. Through a similar effort to increase the environmental awareness of the biodiversity loss in the Cerrado, more legislation mirroring that of an Amazon protection can protect and preserve the vital habitats and ecosystems which remain in the area. While the creation of federally protected areas of untouched areas would be the ideal mitigation strategy for reducing biodiversity loss in the Cerrado of Brazil, similar efforts would not be as effective in the United Kingdom, India, or in the United States because the area in the Cerrado that is in need of protection is yet undeveloped and still remains in its natural state. While these other nations do have federally protected areas similar to Brazil's, this mitigation strategy would be ineffective because areas which haven't been put under federal protection in these countries have already been repositioned for human use, and areas of untouched nature are the ones that are already under protection.
Montana is extremely well known for hunting, fishing, and outdoor tourism. Tourism and Montana's land itself are the structural backbone for the state's economic stability. Some species of animals that people have previously come all over the world to hunt or fish in Montana have become threatened or endangered. The primary stakeholders are local residents, tourists, recreational fishermen, and local and national government. The white sturgeon in the Kootenai River system is one of these species that have joined the endangered species list in September of 1994. The Kootenai River originates in Kootenai National Park in British Columbia and then continues to flow south into northwestern Montana and northern Idaho. The river then curves back up through the Kootenai Valley back into British Columbia, where it conjoins with the Columbia River in Castlegar, British Columbia. The white sturgeon is one of the largest freshwater fish in North America. Its body has remained unchanged for at least 70 million years, explaining its dinosaur-like features. The Kootenai River white sturgeon population is unique to populations in other parts of the United States. The Kootenai River population is the only population that was naturally isolated from the lower Columbia River drainage. According to Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, it is believed the Kootenai population became isolated upstream of Boonington Falls, located below Kootenai Lake, British Columbia, during the last period of glaciation at least 10,000 years ago. Kootenai white sturgeon are now restricted to 168 river miles between Kootenai Falls, 31 miles below Libby Dam, and Kootenai Lake in British Columbia. This separation made the Kootenai River population genetically unique. So how can we successfully assist a landlocked population of white sturgeon to spawn and develop as a population? We must augment spring flows in the Kootenai River to enhance natural reproduction. Adding turbines to the Libby Dam will allow an increased flow of electricity while saving sturgeon. Although turbines are tremendously expensive, adding turbines instead of spilling the extra water, which can cause gas bubble disease in fish, will allow the sturgeon and the bull trout, a threatened species in Montana, to both have the highest success rate. Since the white sturgeon is only located in North America, Brazil, the UK, and India do not have concerns of the endangerment of the white sturgeon. This mitigation strategy would not be possible because the funding from each country to add turbines to their current dams would not be an option. Also, considering the amount of research that would be needed to be performed in each country to sample water and sediment would be unnecessary and costly since the white sturgeon is native to North America.